There you go. Recording has started. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate everybody joining on the call today. We've got a great audience for a hot topic here, especially lately with supply chain planning coming so much to the front line and foremost for businesses when we deal with things like pandemics and global events. Unfortunately, and I guess fortunately for the supply chain industry, it's where we tend to shine. So with us today, what we have is a couple of one really great topic and a couple of presenters to help us demonstrate that. So the topic is how we go live in SAP's IBP platform in 12 weeks. And we're going to show you how we enable our customers here at SCM Connections to do that using a SAP partner qualified solution. We've named it Spark for the SCM Planning Accelerator Resource Kit. And our clients that have used it have had just an amazing set of results, allowing them to go live faster than they ever thought with an application for companies of all size. So just a quick little overview of who we are, if this is your first time working with us or hearing from us. And I see a lot of friends on the call, so that's good. But SCM Connections, we are a SAP partner, have been for quite a while. And as one of the things that we're most proud of in our partnership with SAP is being recognized as an expert in supply chain management. What that means is that SAP has taken a look at our businesses, our qualifications, our training, and more specifically our client results and said, yeah, these guys know what they're doing and we'll give them our stamp of approval. So we're pretty proud of that. We've been in the SAP supply chain space for about 18, 19 years now. And really have focused on the supply chain process transformation, delivering results from for our clients, making sure that they actually don't just get a solution, but actually can use it, can make it help and improve their businesses. So with me today, I have two other presenters who I'll give a quick introduction. So Christy, why don't you go first with a quick introduction to the group about your background and your role here at SCM Connections.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So hey all, I'm Christy Natick. I am the Vice President of Supply Chain Services here for SCM Connections. That means I run our post-project support group, as well as our supply chain as a service, analytics as a service, staff augmentation teams. I come to SCM Connections after a couple decades of mostly life sciences, medical device, and healthcare supply chain work. Most recently as a chief resource officer with one of the largest healthcare systems in the country. So thrilled to be here today talking to you about one of our solutions.
Great. And Shane Kale, why don't you go ahead?
Hey there, it's Shane Kale. I'm a manager of the consulting side of SCM Connections. I actually worked on the first Spark offering package with the building products client to deliver a supply planning module. And today I think we're going to focus on both demand and supply in the form of S&OP, which is one of the offerings that we have for Spark packages. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today and how you can go live in 12 weeks.
Awesome. And my name, like I said, is Mike Raftery. I've been in the consumer products industry for about 10 years before jumping into consulting here with SCM Connections about 7 years ago now. So happy to have everybody join us and excited to share the story here. So first off, I'll just say why SCM Connections, and then what we're going to do is give you a quick overview about our solutions here, and then I'll hand it over to Christy, who will go about the actual kind of nuts and bolts about how we go live in 12 weeks. And Shane, go ahead and jump in too with your experiences having implemented one of the most recent ones in our portfolio, and then in the back half of the presentation, Shane will go ahead and actually show you what that IBP in 12 weeks looks like. So it's not just a PowerPoint slide or a concept, but we're going to show you the actual solution that you would get with that package. So again, should be a great opportunity. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and use that chat feature or the questions feature in the GoToWebinar app, and we'll go ahead and answer those along the way, so don't be shy. So real quickly about SCM Connections, two things we're most proud of. I mentioned the recognized expertise, but also the SAP partner qualified solution. I think it's the first, and it might be the only, there might be one other one out there, I can't remember, but a partner package solution. And what that means is that we have developed a solution specifically for IBP, specifically to stand up supply chains quickly, that SAP has signed off on and said this configuration, this testing, and this blueprint work for us and for our clients. and it makes the it shortens the delivery cycle of those platforms. So pretty proud of that. We have a series of consultants here, all in the US, all certified on the design lead level to make sure that your global implementation experience is successful. And because the founders, including myself from this organization, came from the architecture and working for clients, or being a client ourselves, we know what it takes to make it work. We're not just going to implement and run. We actually have a lot of passion for supply chains and want to make sure that solution gets to work for you and actually makes the change it's promised. And that's what we promise to our clients. So with that, Christy, I'm going to transfer it over to you. And what we'll do is go through kind of what it means, why we came up with the Spark solution to begin with, and then what it can do, and just how in the heck we do it in 12 weeks. So Christy, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, you might be thinking, gosh, with a lot of our employees remote, a lot of companies are announcing now through the rest of the year or even into 2021, with everything's going on, we just don't have the capacity to take on a project. I might argue you don't have a capacity to take on a project that is not well orchestrated, that's not a known entity. And that's where Spark comes in. You need supply chain planning now more than ever. You need to be able to answer the questions, not only can we, but should we? Is this the right thing to do for our business? You need to be able to what if scenario plan if a plant goes down because COVID strikes the line workers, if a transportation lane, the lead time extends out 10 more days due to delays in the trucking industry, if the border closes between us and a neighbor and you can't get supplies anymore, really what your options are. Business today, you have to be able to answer those questions for your team. So that's really where Spark comes in. SCM Connections has taken our industry-leading best practices from our Fortune 500 early adopters of SAP, and we've developed those into a plug-and-play solution. So Pepsi, Cardinal Health, Astellas, McCain Foods, some really big names out there. We've taken the best practices that they've worked through, and we've made it into a package so you get to learn from their guesses and trials, so to speak. And I'd say the best part about Spark is the certainty that it provides your business. This is a project that comes with a fixed price, it comes with a fixed scope, and it's a fixed duration. Again, you're going to be live in 12 weeks. Supply chain planning your business. It really does eliminate all the risks. And I think right now we could all use, one less risk to deal with in the course of a day. So you get rid of that confusing multi-version spreadsheet clogging up your email box, those versions flying back and forth between sales, marketing, finance, whatever it might be. Your team is now working in a cloud-based planning system that allows you to collaborate from wherever you are. So here you go, let's ignite your supply chain. So Spark, as Mike said, it's the SCM Planning Accelerator Resource Kit, and it was the first IBP SAP Qualified Partner Package solution. So again, that SAP stamp of approval that this is a package that really delivers what it says it will. So the best part, Spark is fast, and it's an easy turnkey solution for SAP IBP. We have created a package that really does give you everything you need and ready to work for you in as few as 12 weeks. So when we say that, here's what we're actually talking about. We're talking about your configuration, your key figures. We're talking about templates to facilitate your S&OP process or your demand or your inventory process. We're talking about reporting dashboards so you can easily create executive reports, or you can have the pretty pictures you need for some high-level meetings. And we're talking about training materials so that your planners, your executives, the folks who would be using the system are trained and ready to do their jobs in the system. And we leave those materials behind with you so that you can continue to train if your team turns over as you grow again, that this is a solution that just continues to work with you and grows with you.
And I think, Christy, it's important to point out, it's the fact that these are all sort of aligned to one solution means that that's how you get it up and live so quickly. It's that you're not having to rewrite all of the templates or rewrite the reports or the training. What we promise is what's delivered. Now, a lot of companies will go beyond that, but to start with, this is sort of the key point, is that all aspects of that project are aligned. And so it allows you, for example, to evaluate a cost-effective way off of Excel, right?
Perfect segue, Mike. Yep. It turns out you can get too big for Excel. There comes a point where you have a diminishing return, where your Excel just simply can't do the what if scenario planning you need it to do. It simply cannot provide the kind of analytics and planning that IBP can. But the great news is that IBP is Excel based. It's an Excel add-in. It's just an extra tab in Excel. So your users who are used to doing their jobs in Excel all day will keep that familiarity. It's a solution that instantly feels comfortable for them because they're already so comfortable in Excel. So the one thing I did pass off on the last slide, again, we talk about fixed price. SCM Connections can have you up and live, services, SAP license, the whole shebang for under $300,000. So that's a price tag you may not have expected for a Fortune 500 solution. But again, the Spark modules, choose from our pre-built packages. We've made sure to cover all the stops to make sure that your needs are addressed with one of our pre-built packages. So inventory optimization, that's a go-to solution if you're looking for hard dollar savings, if you're looking to ensure that your customers have what they need. If you've had a big spike in demand, if you've had a big change in demand, this is a fantastic module to really make sure that you've got the products where your customers need them. Sales and operations planning, making sure your organization is aligned right now. If you're not an organization that has worked remote in the past, this has been a challenge for a lot of our customers. And having a unified planning area, having a single source of truth, so to speak, like SAP IBP, has been a huge step forward for a lot of the organizations struggling with how you align marketing, sales, finance, supply chain. IBP is a fantastic tool to ensure remote collaboration. And then supply planning and demand planning, these are both areas that have been thrown into chaos by the current events of the last few months. Either you're struggling to get a lot of your raw materials or your supplies from your suppliers. Maybe it's dried up overnight, maybe they've shifted, maybe the border's closed and you can't get them through the way you used to be able to. And then demand, we have customers whose demand literally dried up overnight. We have customers whose demand literally skyrocketed 800% overnight. These are serious challenges on both ends, and you have to be able to apply a very analytical viewpoint to creating sustainable solutions in both these areas. We've created all 4 of these packages to ensure that we address KPIs, again, dashboards, templates, to make sure that you are up and ready to do your jobs in these packages as quickly as possible. Mike and Shane, what can you add to these?
So I think, one thing to add is that these are the starting points, but they don't need to be the end point. So a lot of times people will use this and say, well, we just need to get our hands around a forecast. So we're going to start with demand. And then they say, a little bit later, we want to move into inventory or S&OP. So it's not necessarily pick and choose, but it definitely helps to sort of predefine the scope, the deliverables, and the duration of what's the most critical part in your supply chain, or the gap, I guess, in your solution set right now. They each have their own elements, and we're definitely able to help you do it. All of them, though, can be stood up in that 12-week time frame, which makes it really valuable to get something quick and see results, even in this calendar year.
Yep, spot on. Thanks, Mike. So here's a little more information about each of them we had up. But as we've said over and over again, nope, no worries, no worries. As we've said over and over again, the entire purpose of Spark from our perspective is to drive that value as quickly as possible. If you want to hop to the next one, Mike. And that's exactly what we've set up this package to do. So expert training on how to effectively use the IBP tool, how to get the most bang for your buck. There are a lot of firms out there who can partner with you to bring IBP live. Make sure you pick a partner that really teaches your team to understand and to utilize the tool as a part of their daily workflow. Anyone can configure this tool, but understanding how IBP really adds value into your process and for your people is where you're going to see the ROI.
And I think it's important to point out too that these are direct benefits that you can still realize in this calendar year with that scope, right?
Yep, indeed. It's not Q4 yet. We've still got 2020, unfortunately for all of us, is not over yet. So yeah, reduce time for decision cycles by as much as 25% with that collaboration that IBP provides. Run a consistent and transparent cycle, which is just imperative these days. Quick and easy outcome comparisons, side by side to your baseline, to your upside, baseline to your downside. What happens if this plant closes? What happens if this DC goes down? What happens if we add a third shift? All these can be run now in a matter of seconds rather than a matter of hours, which is just phenomenally powerful. So a little more detailed into the Spark package benefits. Again, ensures proven best practices. I'd say this is our #1 request as we're going through requirements gathering and blueprinting with our clients on IBP projects. They want to know what are other companies doing out there? What are the best practices that we've seen implemented along with these tools? Because it really is a process tool. Putting technology on top of broken processes is not going to solve a problem for you. So ensuring that you are implementing in a way that you're working best practices in a best practice tool to create hard dollar value from day one. That's really the name of the game here. Removes the project risk. Again, fixed duration, fixed cost, fixed scope. There really is no risk to the organization on this one. You get, in a rare occurrence these days, exactly what was advertised, exactly what was promised. You'll be up and live in the module of your choice at that set cost in 12 weeks. And you know the deliverables and the scope from the start, exactly what you're getting. And as Mike said, it's a starting point, not an end point. So you come up live on the tool, you work the process, and if you want to continue the evolution, you want to continue, maybe implement Optimizer, look at some more advanced practices, all that's available for you to keep going on your IBP journey. So Spark package is included, again, those Excel planning view templates based on best practices. We've set them up based on our years of IBP implementation experience as a guess starting point of what you'll need. Dashboards for those root cause analytics and performance measurement, the configuration library and the guides detailing the system setup for your IT folks. IBP release maintenance test scripts for regression testing, the web analytics, those are those charts and dashboards where you can create your executive reporting or your S&OP, consensus report out. Again, a defined set of custom planning attributes that are configured exactly to your business, to your planning hierarchy. And with all that, we do provide the best-in-class training guides to support IBP adoption across your organization, and so you can continue to train new users to come.
And the key is that they're all sort of tied together, right? So they can work together, and it shorts the decision and the build cycles. And it's more of an implementation. We did have one question about how do you get the integration to work in that, because everybody has a little bit of a different flavor. So there's two ways about it. Do you want to go ahead, Christine, answer it?
Nope, go for it.
Okay, so one is that, we map mostly to standard attributes that are out there, but we also, have been around enough to know that everybody's master data setup is a little bit different. So as long as they're mapping to some of the standard tables and some of the standard structures in ECC and S4, we've allowed for some flexibility there. Where this expands beyond 12 weeks is if there are other non-SAP systems, or if you're trying to integrate to a BI or something, something a little different, then that would expand to include sort of some custom integration into this solution. But for the most part, if you're an SAP customer that's been running ECC or S4 for a while, those integration layers are accommodated well within 12 weeks because of the attributes we've mapped and the tables that they're contained in.
Yeah, I will say though, one of my favorite parts about IBP as a tool is that it is source system agnostic. So if you are not currently an SAP customer today, if you're not running ECC or APO, the great news is that we can integrate IBP to just about anything. If you're, if you today are living off of an Excel spreadsheet and your business is growing at a rate that can't sustain that, IBP is a solution for you. If your company has been on a merger or acquisition kick and you've got a whole bunch of different source systems out there, IBP is a phenomenal solution to give you that one source of truth view from all those different source systems. So a few little nuances, but I think that's one of the key defining attributes of IBP is that it is source system agnostic. Go live timeline, 12 weeks here. This may look familiar to any of you. It's kind of a modified agile approach. But again, we take those best practice templates, we train, we test, we go, and here's your sample project plan. Again, you want an implementer that's done this before. This is certainly not SCM Connections' first rodeo. And this tried and true process of design, build, and go live has really served our clients well. A very clear RACI chart of what is needed from our team, what is needed from your team, and how we move forward to make sure that we're aligned and the sign-off requirements all along the way to make sure that what you're getting meets your needs.
Perfect. And then one last one here before we jump into the demo. And Shane, I don't know if you want to talk to this as a transition point, because this is one of the projects that you worked on.
Sure. So this was with James Hardy Building Products, where we did a supply optimization project in 12 weeks. And kind of going back to that RACI chart and project plan that you just showed, the key was taking the Spark, predetermined key figures, planning views, and leveraging that to have an expedited implementation timeline. What we did after that was we layered in, beyond the 12 weeks, we had this solution up and live. Then we started to layer in additional functionality to model new constraints into the supply planning optimization, things like storage resources, to model a kind of a capacity constraint in terms of how much product you could store at different stocking points across their supply chain network. Transportation resources to model how much transportation is purchased. Are you capable of moving products within your network? Things like that. So I think that leveraging the Spark configuration and setup with kind of a long-term vision, what enabled that project to be extremely successful and beneficial in such a rapid amount of time.
Cool. Yeah, it was a great one. So with that, Shane, I think what we'll do is shift a little bit away from the overview and get into the meat of it. So we've kind of walked through what it is, the value proposition, and how you'd actually go live in 12 weeks. But let's shift a little bit here and show what exactly you get in that time frame. So Shane, I've kind of made you the presenter. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, you should be able to give everybody an overview of what we're looking at.
Let's see here.
There you go. Perfect.
Yep.
We can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So we're just going to take a look at the Spark planning views that we've set up here for sales and operations planning. And part of the Spark package are the pre-configured templates that we deliver, and this should help your company set up a kind of have a nice template and baseline for how do you conduct sales and operations planning within IBP and leverage a unified planning area where you have all your inputs from a demand and supply perspective in one data set that allows you to have a more efficient sales and operations planning process. So in this demand review template here, we have different tabs. You can see this is kind of a summary tab. So we have a historical cleanse for cleansing your sales history if there's any outliers that you want to scrub from your statistical forecasting. And we have our statistical forecasting tab where we'll show you kind of the light version of statistical forecasting that comes in the sales and operations planning module. If you have the demand module, you obviously get more sophisticated statistical forecasting capabilities and algorithms. And then we have some additional tabs for integrating the sales forecasts from your sales or account management teams, marketing forecasts, and your annual operating plan from finance. And ultimately, we're going to view the demand consensus to show how all these inputs line up and allow your company to choose what's the final consensus demand that you're going to use as an input into calculating your supply requirements. Just to take you quickly here through these tabs and give you a sense of how they're laid out to help your company plan, we feed in an integrated data feed for your actuals quantity, which represents your actual sales quantity. And this actual quantity adjusted key figure here allows planners to cleanse data if there was an outlier period. So if you can see here in June in this chart, the actual quantity was over 103,000 units in sales, but we've scrubbed that down to about 83,000 units because we don't want that outlier in June that was driven by COVID, for example, to reflect in our forecast for future periods. You can also set up web alerts to trigger these types of instances to help planners manage by exception a little better. Then we'll move on to our statistical forecast here. Start to get a sense of, we can view our actuals quantity from prior year, excuse me there, compared to our statistical forecast in the future. The great thing about IBP is you can do a lot of ad hoc planning. Like if you need to run a specific forecast model and that you want to have the planner be able to do that anytime they want, as opposed to running these on schedule, you can do that right here from the Excel interface. And as part of our Spark packages, we have a set of forecast models that come with the demand package with this prefix here of demand. We also have some S&OP packages here. So for example, I'm going to run the best fit exponential smoothing model. And this model is configured in the IBP web user interface. And this will choose the best model in terms of accuracy for each planning combination. So in this case, I'm going to plan a forecast for my customer regions and my product families. And I'm going to have the system choose whichever model is the most accurate for each of these combinations of customer region and family. So I'm just going to run it just to demonstrate how easy it is to perform that. And then we have our sales forecast, marketing forecast, and annual operating plans. And this is whether you're able to pull this data in from an external system or to have your sales team manually key in the forecast. That's what these planning views are set up here for, just to view the data coming from other departments outside of the supply chain team. And ultimately, the demand consensus is kind of the finalizing point where everybody's in the room for the monthly sales and operations planning cycle. You can see what were sales last year, actuals quantity prior year, compared to what is the statistical forecast that IBP is predicting for this customer region and product family, compared to my sales forecast from the sales team, the marketing team's forecast, finance's annual operating quantity, and then my consensus demand plan that I'm going to check. So, no more passing spreadsheets back and forth, emailing wrong versions across different teams. This is a unified system that stores all this data in the cloud and enables more effective and expedited consensus demand planning here. Another thing is, if I don't want to view this data at such a high level, a customer region or a specific product family, you can easily disaggregate this plan. Say, I know we have a few products within our headphones, and this is an example of like a electronic good manufacturer. So I'm going to disaggregate this forecast to say, what is each product ID saying in terms of our consensus demand plan, because that's ultimately going to impact my production team and trying to fulfill supply plan. So now I can view each of these key figures by the different products that I produce and sell. Mike or Christy, anything you want to add to kind of the usability of these templates?
No, just to say that, you know, a lot of these functions are pretty, you know, baked within the process flows that we designed, right? And that's sort of the key to it, is not having to go through long-term blueprints. What we found is that most of our clients, especially those that are new to sort of a consensus demand and new to an S&OP process, this handles most of their needs. Again, you can change the time dynamic or the different attributes based on what you're looking for, but the overall flow you're showing, Shane, is pretty typical for what most people are looking for.
Okay. So once you have your consensus demand finalized, we have another template here set up for the supply side. Okay. And similarly to the demand side, we have a summary of the different templates. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our consensus demand forecast and we're going to use that as an input to calculating our supply requirements. And this will account for all the master data that you feed into Spark engine in terms of lot sizing rules, transportation lanes, your transportation calendars, things like that, to give you as accurate and realistic the supply plan as possible. With the Spark Sales and Operations Planning module, it comes with a heuristic that will calculate an unconstrained supply plan. So in this template, we've set this up to cover all the kind of the end-to-end supply planning views and process that you need to plan effectively. So we have our customer demand, and then we have our distribution centers to customers, because a lot of times with the supply planning side, our customers want to see, where am I sourcing each of my products from? I have multiple points of distribution, you know, maybe I have the East Coast, West Coast, and Midwest. You know, what percentage of my demand is being fulfilled by each of those points? Then we have a transportation for seeing the flow of products from plants to DCs or from a vendor into one of your plants for production. And then we can view our production receipts along with the components. So IBP easily supports a bill of material explosion for calculating the dependent production receipts through the entire bill of materials. Then we can view capacity. With even though we're running an unconstrained plan, we can say, you know, do my supply requirements outmatch my ability to, you know, meet a realistic capacity plan? And if so, what kind of adjustments or what kind of shifting can we do within our supply chain to fulfill as much demand as possible within the constraints that are known? And finally, an inventory projection tab to look at how our projected stock aligns to our inventory targets in future periods. So I want to jump here to the capacity tab just to give you a sense for kind of the results you'd expect to get. So what you're seeing here is the final results of a supply heuristic calculation. And the same thing goes with forecasting. If you need to calculate a heuristic to know what your future supply requirements are here, user can go into the Excel interface here and run the Spark supply heuristic. If you have the supply planning module, you would also get supply optimizer and supply optimizer with explanation to give you more detailed insights into why certain demands weren't met and things like that for additional troubleshooting purposes. But you can choose kind of the horizon on how far out do you need to calculate your supply plan. You can even plan with different master data versions if you want to have an upside or a downside, or if you want to model if you're proposing a different network, and say if we add in a new distribution facility, how would that impact our overall supply plan and ability to meet customer demand? So that's another great feature of IBP, is the built-in versions and what if scenario planning capabilities. So I'm just going to kick this off too, and I'm going to run this within one of my sub-networks here. So based on the heuristic output that we're seeing here, you can see that my supply kind of represents what my capacity is in each of these calendar weeks looking forward. And the capacity usage of the production resource saying how much demand am I putting on that resource. And anytime I have a utilization over 100%, I need my planners to be aware of that so that they can come up with some tactical responses to say, how do I need to move around my production to level load my capacity plan, for example. Another example here would be the transportation receipts. Say, where are each of my distribution centers demanding location from? So in this case, I have location 3710 demanding product from 1010, about 1,300 units a week. And I can see that in the first week, I'm not getting any receipts. It's probably due to lead time, but we can use our other tabs to validate and troubleshoot the root cause of that. I can see that beyond this week, I have enough inventory to make sure that all my distribution demand is being met. So this is the kind of pre-configured setup that we have for the supply planning to give planners the, they're at the fingertips, easy plug and play solution to start planning more effectively in their sales and operations process. So is it now a good time to check to see if there's any questions from
One
Andy?
question we had was on the Power BI analytics. So we mentioned that analytics are included in this. The Power BI stuff, which we showed in an earlier webinar, is not a standard included, but it is an add-on you can get for the Spark packages. That's an important question. I think one thing also to point out to Shane, is that there's different ways to utilize this, right? So if you have clients that are very detailed in sort of their costing information and want to do costing evaluation on production, on inventory, on transportation spend, those are elements that are very easy to incorporate here, but they're not necessary. And I think sometimes that can become a barrier to people's usage of it. Yeah, exactly. So, you're seeing this, but if you didn't have that information, that's really not a problem. That's something that you can, I call it, you can grow into it. So if you want to just get to maybe a capacity review, or if you want to look for areas of savings for inventory, or where you might have too much or not enough inventory on hand, that's fine. You can start there, but the structures are all in place. So even if you're not able to use all of the functionality now, so you don't have a great grasp on pricing models or a great place to pull cost information from, that doesn't prevent you from getting the value out of it. It just gives you longer use cases in the future to get that data in. The other part about it is the scenario management that comes with it. I think that can be extremely underrated because it's so simple to run. But to be able to, say, compare 3 different consensus plans side by side and show the profitability in a scenario right next to each other is hugely valuable to bring into a meeting and to provide answers really quickly. I don't know if you have one to show, Shane, what that would look like, or if you can create one real quick.
Yeah. So up here, you have the ability to create a scenario. Let's say annual operating plan consensus. Say, if finance said, we have to use their forecast, what would be the resulting supply downstream, right? So within scenario planning, you can, by default, the scenario is only visible to the user who creates a scenario. But if I wanted to share this with Mike and Christy, so they can review the scenario before we promote it to the baseline and actually start executing supply orders to this plan. IBP makes it super easy to do these type of scenario planning and run plans side by side. So if I want to here, I can say, here's my annual operating consensus, and I can change the forecast. Another thing I can do is I can view scenarios side by side. So I'm going to edit this view here, and I'm going to bring in my baseline. Okay, so now let's say annual operating plan in week 35, finance is insisting that the forecast is going to be 1,000, supply chain thinks it's 164. This is the type of thing that you can do at just the tip of your fingers, adjust the consensus demand, and then show you how you can run a supply plan in multiple scenarios simultaneously, which is really the great feature. So in my S&OP operators, I'm going to choose the heuristic to calculate my supply plan. And in here, in this left panel, you can choose whichever scenarios you want to calculate. And obviously, the inputs to the scenarios are different in terms of having different forecasts, and the outputs are going to be different. And then going a step further, how does this impact my overall profitability? So we have preset key figures that calculate your inventory holding costs, your projected production cost value, your total customer receipts. So if you apply a cost of goods sold and a kind of a gross margin to those, then we can calculate things like your gross profit in each of the scenarios, your indirect costs, and your operating profit. And that's all calculated on the fly, assuming that you enter in the plan price for each customer product combination. So system can calculate your revenue and your cost of goods sold and come up with your gross profit and other valuable calculations and view those in different scenarios.
So Shane, we had a couple of questions here.
Yep.
So one question I had, and I'll take them in the order here that we got them, is the solution itself targeted for small to medium companies? I would say it's not exclusive for them, but we find that they find small to medium companies have the most use for it, because generally they're coming out of Excel, and this is sort of their first, grown-up, using air quotes, grown-up planning system, as opposed to somebody sort of cobbling it together with Excel and Access reports and things like that. We also find that they're trying to mature into a best practice S&OP process or demand planning process. So it helps give them a bit more structure. And we find that those kind of companies seem to get the most out of it. The other one is a question around, will the orders generated in supply planning be passed back to ECC or S4HANA? Order-based planning was still worked out by SAP, and time series was going to send the forecast back to itself. If you're running it with these modules, there's a couple ways to integrate it back. Demand planning and safety stock planning are very easy to integrate. You're pushing time series data back to a time series application. So those integration points are very direct. When you're talking about order-based planning, I think you're right in that it is sending an independent requirement back for MRP to create those, for MRP to create the orders for you. That's sort of our default way to do it. There are other ways to do that if required. And again, that might expand it. The standard way to do it is to pass a PIR back. However, if you wanted to pass it through order-based planning, or if you wanted to create a custom object to create order data, that we could accommodate with an extra feature on top of the Spark package, but it's not standard. I don't know, Jim or Shane, if you guys have any take on that one.
No, I agree with that. The independent requirements are definitely standard to pass, but if you get into things that are more order specific, like in terms of transferring stock or production or purchasing, that's not included in the base package, but can certainly be developed. We have solutions for those, just not part of the standard Spark.
And just to comment on both of those questions, on the first one on whether it's for smaller companies or not, Mike talked about that's probably going to be the majority of the market for it. But if you're a global company, a large company, and you have you've done a lot of acquisitions, this could be a good starting package for a global template, where you take one of those companies, you bring them on, you bring them up to speed really quick, you have them work through some of the designs that you need, and then you start rolling that out from business unit to business unit across the globe, adding in a little bit of localization here and there. So it could certainly get you up and running fast for one of those acquisitions and become a global template. And as far as the integration, Shane mentioned, planned independent requirements is the one that SAP has developed a template for, and that's the primary way of communicating. But if you wanted to, if that wasn't going to meet your need, you could do something like a BAPI and ECC or S4, where we could create purchase requisitions directly. We could create planned orders for manufacturing directly. It just requires more information within IBP. You'll have to model the vendor. You'll have to model, the production data structure. It takes a little bit more information, but it's certainly feasible to, to bypass the planned independent requirement and go directly to an order creation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, order-based planning is, that's a whole level of detail more that you're going to require if you're going to pass things through there. But that has built in almost push button, create your purchase requisitions, your stock transfers, your planned orders, sales order confirmations, things like that. Those are even more out of the box integration for those, much like APO SIF integration, if you're familiar with APO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always the stickiest part of these because everybody's is just a little bit different, but it's a nice starting point. Cool. Shane, you want to talk to the dashboards that you're showing real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I know the question came up earlier about kind of the Power BI. So this comes standard with Spark, is the web analytics here. So these are just a couple examples that we have for our S&OP dashboard. And these are super easy to set up. You don't have to have a computer science degree to set this up. It's really very intuitive and user-friendly to create these, but these are just a couple of standard charts that we have as part of Spark. Just wanted to show off maybe an example of one where we can view our revenue by product family, which is always very helpful to see here. So this is a nice, easy chart to give a breakdown in terms of our 5 different product families: headphones, home and theater products, music docks, smartphones, and trading devices. We get a nice monthly breakdown of how the revenue is comprising the total revenue across our entire product line here. So just want to show how easy these are to incorporate. And the nice thing about them is whenever you log into the web end of IBP, these are calculated on the fly, so you don't have to go in and run anything or refresh. So they're really easy to use and always up to date and real time for getting them the real relevant information. Yep. Here's another one that's comparing our annual operating plan revenue to the constrained demand revenue that our supply plan calculated. So in June of 2021, we can see that we're projected to be way below the revenue that our finance team says that we have to make. And so this would be give you the easy, visible information to say, this would be if this were the true plan, this would definitely be a huge topic of conversation within the S&OP meeting to figure out why this is and what can be done to close the gap.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We had one other question, guys. Besides dollarization, what should customers expect that are using APO DP expect for a benefit with IBP demand? My takeaway for this one is twofold. One, the elimination of CVCs is a limitation. There's no such thing as a CVC structure in IBP. So you can manage data and run forecasts at data very flexibly without any sort of multiple planning areas and multiple setups for that. I mean, that alone has pushed some people over to demand planning. The other one I would call is the best fit forecasting in IBP is really very slick, as well as the pre-processing in the forecast automation processes. What we find, and feedback from the users, and Jim and Shane chime in on this afterwards, is that it's just it's much less complex and much easier to manage your forecast within IBP demand, whereas APO DP always felt a bit sort of rigid, I would say. Jim, your take on that?
Yeah, the CVC structures kind of really locked you into place, and you had to, if you wanted to change some things around, or if you wanted to realign or do some other things, you had to basically tear it apart and rebuild it. Where the CVCs are more of a flexible combination within IBP, where if you add one in and just build the link through the planning level, everything is already done for you in the background. There's no tearing it down and rebuilding it. You can change stuff on the fly with your aggregations, disaggregations. Just the flexibility there is just so much higher to be able to viewing it in dollars and different units of measure, and they put a lot more usability, flexibility, made the user experience much better in IBP than within the demand planning of APO.
Yep.
Even forecasting at different levels, different aggregation levels, comparing them all to be able to put in any kind of combination you want because it can handle that volume of data. Typically in demand planning and APO, you had to stop at a certain CVC count just because you were gonna crash the system with performance, and this gives you the flexibility to really slice it and dice it in a way that can really squeeze that last bit of accuracy out of your forecast.
So we're coming down to the end here. If anybody has any last questions, feel free to do it. I'm going to launch a poll. I apologize, I launched this by accident earlier, so trying not to do that this time. Now it's on purpose. But just a quick poll, trying to see which Spark module you would find most relevant. Again, this just kind of helps us to figure out where to invest based on people's interest and, you know, where the most value would be. And so it's just sort of an informal poll on our point of view. We'll leave this up for a moment as we wait for any further questions to come through. I will say just, you know, as a last sort of push for this, we do see a lot of people taking advantage of this, especially in a time where capital budgets are constrained and solution gaps are becoming much more apparent. So it becomes, you know, would you rather get every little thing you have, or would you rather get something up and running now? And what people are finding is that you know, the need to get answers now is extremely critical. And solutions like this, any of these partner package solutions from SAP, I'll have a plug for them. That if you're not familiar with that program from SAP, not just for our solution, but any solutions you have out there that you need to plug gaps in for ECC, you know, IBP, ours is out there, as among any other solutions. It's a real nice and easy way to get something that's qualified, minimize your risk, maximize the value, and I don't think it's been promoted enough within the SAP community, so I'll make my plug for it there. Any final thoughts, guys, from having worked on Spark packages over the last couple years, probably 2 years or so, that you want to kind of share as your best practices?
I mean, these are really, I mean, the meant as starter kits, right? These aren't meant to be you mentioned a continuous improvement over perfection. Get something up, get it running, then start working on it. Get that ROI as quickly as possible. There's very light overhead. This is, you know, it's not a dumping out a box of Legos and trying to picture what you're trying to do and draw it up on the board. This is, you've got the picture on the box. We've given you all of the pieces. We've trained you on how to, you know, best way to put them together and give you everything you need to build what's in there, and even do a little bit of modification on your own. You could actually do this all on your own in Spark with everything that we've given you. It's just going to take you a lot longer. You know, you're talking 24, 36 weeks possibly. We'll get you there fast, and you'll have something that you can show and start, you know, getting your return on investment right away. And that's really big for these projects. If you worked with SAP long enough, you see, you know, you tend to hear this 12-month, $1 million, no matter what you want to do on it. And that's an exaggeration for that. But these things, if you try to plan the perfect solution, that's when you get into your 6-month, 12-month projects. And
Yeah, exactly.
And it drags out, and you've got a business to run while you're doing this. So, you know, this is a great
point, Jim. Don't let good enough get in the way of perfect. Yeah, again, you'll be up in 12 weeks. Don't put your preconceived notions of maybe if you had PTSD with APO, don't push those onto IBP. It really is a different animal. And again, we can make sure that in 3 months you've got answers.
Right. So here we go. And just a quick little poll. Thanks for everybody that answered here. This follows the trends we see. S&OP is always the most interesting one. I think it's because it's the easiest one to fill and the biggest gap, honestly, in most ones. A couple of things, just real quick housekeeping questions we got. One, this will be recorded and distributed, so you'll be able to take a read at it later. A couple other quick questions. One is lifecycle planning, part of Spark. And if you're talking about the phase in, phase out capabilities of demand. That's including demand and S&OP. So that would be included. And then Christy, a question on the pricing, the 300,000 that you mentioned, is that for one Spark solution or for all solutions in one?
That is any of them. That is any one module service and SAP license.
Yeah. Cool. So with that, I think what we'll do, let's see if there's any further questions here. I think that's it. We're running to the top of the hour, so I really do appreciate everybody's participation, attentiveness, and interest. And please feel free to reach out to us for any questions that you might have. We're easy to find on the web. We're easy to find on just about any social media platform out there. Check out our YouTube channel, which is what we're going to go ahead and send to you. I think I have it up right now. Oh, it's showing the poll results. There we go. There you go. So go ahead and check us out on our website, our YouTube channel. All of our previous webinars, as well as product demos, are on our YouTube channel. If you search for SCM Connections, there's a ton of great resources to share. Again, we post everything for free, so please take advantage of it, as well as our LinkedIn posts. Our latest blog, as well as the top features of the 2008 release. So if you're not as familiar as you need to be with the IBP release that was just came out, I think last week, go ahead and check out our blog there. It's always a popular one. So again, appreciate everybody's time, feedback. Come check us out, and we will be in touch. Thanks again, and enjoy
Thanks for listening, guys.
Wednesday. Bye.
Bye-bye.